God bless you. It's Pastor Abraham Lincoln Washington. And it is Jumpstart time. And I've got the booster cables for your walk with God. All right. Well, God bless you this morning. Praise God for another opportunity to encourage you. Call on God. What's his name, y'all? His name? That's John Gibson from way back in the day, y'all. Way back in the day. Do you know your God? Well, the name of that song is In the Name of the Lord. And his name is Jesus. We thank God for what Jesus did. We thank God for what Jesus showed us through his birth, his life, his death, his burial. Every single step is the exact model that he intentionally left. It's the map. It's the blueprint for our lives. Earlier this week, I talked about Martin Luther King and what he shared in one of his famous speeches, the blueprint for your life. And he encouraged people to be dedicated to principles for life, the principle of somebodyness, knowing that you are valuable and that you're somebody, and never allow someone else to define who you are, especially out of their spirit of hate. To also dedicate yourself to the spirit and to achieving excellence in everything that you do. And then also the principle of serving others. And the serving others is really a biblical principle. Serving starts when you choose to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And folks, that's an absolute serious commandment from God. God desires for us to love him with all of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. And he's commanding us to, the second command is for us to love our neighbors the way we love ourselves. This is what's coming straight out of the heart of God. This is his expectation for his creation. What he made, he directs. And his directions towards us, his directions to us individually and collectively, is to love one another. And the highest expression of that love is sacrificial love. And that was the love that Jesus gave us, because he stood in our place. He took our punishment. He went all the way down to hell for us. That's love. That's love. But when we look in the world that we're in now, listen, it's time for us as Christians. We've got to remember who we are in this world. We just cannot allow ourselves to become the common thermometers, registering the temperature, being displaced and getting outside of our Christian character and conduct because of what we see other people doing in a wicked way. This is important. And I really say this to my Christian brothers and sisters. You know, we have to really be careful how quick we start using racial slurs amongst our group of people, our friends. You'd be shocked at how many Christians will call someone the N-word. You'd be shocked at how many supposedly black folks that love Jesus and are saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, but they'll call a white person, the C word or the H word or whatever word, You'd be surprised at how easy it is for us to slip into saying ugly, awful things like that. And when you have the reminders that we're receiving in this season, when you look and you see, people being released from jail that were responsible for killing the Capitol officers, protecting the lives of our elected officials. When you can see a president that has released them all without even taking time to look at the individual cases, throwing all of the due process, and everything that they were given an opportunity to do. We're talking about people that went before judges and pled guilty because they were guilty, but completely pardoned and exonerated of their charges. That'll cause you to go back into a bag of hate. That can cause you to desire a little revenge. That can easily cause us to slip back. I'm going to tell you this. Where we see an absence of love, that's where we're supposed to apply it. Where we see hate emerging, where we see greed, thriving, that's where we're supposed to put love in the equation. Let me tell you, the topic today is you spread it. You spread it. It's amazing how quick and how easy it is for us to look and see what our spouse is not doing for us. But are you still doing what you're supposed to be doing for them? You spread it. You spread it. Well, people in my neighborhood, you can tell, man, they got their flags up and they put this and these on their bumper stickers and all. Hey, listen, you spread the love. You put something good on your bumper sticker. See, it's important for you to not be a thermometer. You have to choose to be a thermostat. You can change the environment. I found out that people that are quick to call folks, racial slurs and racial names, they're shallow. They're shallow and they lack genuine relationships. They're probably hanging around people that look like they look, think like they think, talk like they talk. And I'm telling you, you'd be shocked at what would happen to them if all you have to do is just bring some of your warm, loving heart of Jesus Christ next to their cold, cold soul, and you can heat them up really quickly. But it's just the opposite. We're allowing them to make us cold. There's only one way to drive out darkness. You have to bring the light. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Listen, folks, when I tell you all that I'm so thankful for the relationships that I have with so many different types of folks, different backgrounds, white folks, Asians, Hispanics, I thank God for the relationships that I have. And I refuse to allow myself, I refuse to become a racist second-handed, because God has blessed me with so many amazing friends that I get to speak the truth to, that I get to challenge, that I'm thankful that they have me, and I'm so happy to have them to understand the way people think. And just this week, I was able to, via live stream, honor the life of Coach Bill McCartney. And Bill McCartney was a great man. And I thank the Lord for the relationship that the Lord allowed me to have with him. I was blessed tremendously through the ministry of Promise Keepers. I was honored to have met him, honored to have had an opportunity to speak to their staff. My brother Raleigh was president of Promise Keepers, and that was an inroad for me to be able to have spiritual impact with that organization. And I was blessed to be on some of the platforms, speaking and ministering to thousands and thousands of men. But Coach McCartney, when I tell you that he had a heart of love, he loved people that were racially different from him. He one day said to me, he said, "Link, would you believe God with me that God would end racism in my lifetime?" He said, "Would you believe God for that?" I believe God can do it. he passed away, and, well, unfortunately, racism is still alive and well. And when they asked me if I would believe God, I said, yes, I will. I'll believe God with me. He said, well, will you do something about it? Will you do something about it? Because talking about it won't get it done. We have to be about it. Would you help me gather black brothers and see if they'll come to some of these events? And as a pastor, I did just that. In Chicago, we put groups of men together, and I'm talking about, I went with the assignment, and man, we were trying to get as many black brothers to go to Promise Keepers events that we knew would be filled with white brothers, because we really needed to worship together. And I saw the very power of God show up in those stadiums. Well, Coach Bill McCartney, excuse me, and he was a pastor too. I tell you, that man could preach and minister. I went through a really tough event. I was in Bullitt County, Kentucky, Shepherdsville, and I was getting gas, and my wife, we were on a trip back from Jacksonville, Florida to Chicago, and it was my son's 8th grade graduation trip day, and I got gas. I had to purchase some lumber for a business I was a part of also, and I had gone to a telephone to make a business call, and my wife during that time went over to one of the stores to purchase and buy some things for my son's trip. And I came back to that gas station that I had filled my van up with, and now I'm sitting in the back waiting for my wife to return. So there was a little picnic table, and it was hot at this particular time. So there was a little picnic table in the back of the gas station. I went back there and sat at that picnic table. And the next thing I know, here comes a police officer. And he's telling me, hey, what are you doing back here? What are you doing? And I said, just sitting in the shade. I mean, it's obvious what I'm doing. He wanted my license. He wanted my name, my social security. I said, man, has something happened? Is everything okay, officer? What's going on? And man, he said, yeah, I told you what I want. Now, you're going to give it to me. And if you don't want to give it to me, I'm going to put you in this car, take you down the street, and I'll get a couple of my fellas, and we'll get whatever out of you we want to get out of you. Well, I knew what was going down, y'all. So guess what I did? I told that man, after he asked me 3 different times, what's my name? What's your name? What's your name? I finally told him my name is Abraham Lincoln Washington. And he looked at me and said, oh, you want to be a smart bleep, 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 bleep. But I didn't get off of that seat. I sat there because I realized that if I made some quick moves or anything, there was no telling what could happen to me. Another police pulls up. He says, hey, chief, this dude is here lying, talking about he's some Abraham Lincoln Washington. He wants to be a smart aleck and all this stuff. And, oh, man, same at that time, my wife was pulling back in, and she looked and she saw me, and she put the window down and said, Link, what happened? What's wrong? And I said, everything's all right. And boy, when she saw these 2 cops with the lights flashing all around me, a tear started coming out of her eye. And when I saw that distress on my wife, I stood up. And as soon as I stood up, the chief of police was going to the car, asking her, he's saying his name is Abraham Lincoln Washington. She said, that is his name. He's a pastor. The other lieutenant that was there bothering me all that time looked at the chief going to my van, looked back at me, looked back at the chief. And he said, hey, chief, did you see that? He lunged at me. Now, I hadn't moved. I just stood up because my wife pulled up. And that man picked me up, slammed me down on my face, put his knee in my back, almost broke my arm. By that time, the chief of police is running over. And I'm telling you, just like that, I was thrown in the back of a police car, handcuffed. 45 minutes later, they're taking me to jail for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and all trumped up charges. My wife, my children were in that van with the big old glass conversion van with that big old window, and They saw their daddy thrown face first down on that picnic table, knee put in my back. I'm screaming out because, folks, I was in intense pain. And my children were looking at me through that window, crying uncontrollably, not knowing what was happening to their father. 14 hours later, that's the next morning, y'all, I'm bailed out of jail, facing serious charges in Bullitt County, Kentucky. I'm going back. My son has a trip. I'm racing to try to get back as quickly as I can. And I am telling you this. I went to work as if it had never happened. And I'm the boss. I'm the CEO of my organization. And I have white folks that work for me and black folks that work for me. And in the supervisors meeting with all of my supervisors, I shared what had happened. Not even really thinking as much about it. Man, I just had I'm glad to be back, but a crazy experience coming back, and I shared it. And the white folks that were working for me were incensed and inflamed and absolutely ready to do something about it. The black folks that worked for me were looking at me like, that's par for the course, man. You had a racist cop that abused their authority. And folks, all my black brothers and sisters that love me, care about me, and were really happy to have the fantastic boss that I was and am, we were all going to chalk it up as just another bad experience in this old white America we live in. But the white folks that I was in an intentional, loving, caring relationship with would not let it stop like that. And they started making calls. And do you want to know who they called? They called Coach Bill McCartney. And Bill McCartney put up $10,000 for me to have a defense fund to fight this with lawyers. And all these folks, white folks, y'all, rallied together and helped me to be well represented. My wife found an incredible civil lawyer, and we went back there to Bullitt County, Kentucky, and I had to face those charges, trumped up charges. And it's just to make a long story short, on the day of going to court, my wife was with me. I was there. None of my black supervisors made their way there, but some of the white ones, plus all of the churches that I had ministered to in Kentucky, the youth groups that I had ministered to in Kentucky, all white youth groups and white churches, to the number of 150 of them, they were in that courtroom. On that day, they had the television stations there recording this black pastor from Chicago, Illinois, is coming to Kentucky. And they thought that I was coming with Jesse Jackson and Operation Push. Oh, no. Listen, folks, I had a phenomenal relationship with white folks and white churches. I mean, I had been intentional in sharing the love of Jesus and sharing what I was doing in the inner city, being supported by many of these white churches that made it possible for all of my staff to be paid. I'm in an intentional relationship because I had been spreading the love, the need that I had in my community required the loving support that I got from other communities. There were not black communities, y'all. And they were there with me. And those cameras expecting raucous black folks to be coming, spreading all of that poison of it's time for revenge. Instead, they had to interview white folks that said, on behalf of Kentucky, we want to apologize to Pastor Washington and his congregation and his wife for the racial hate they've experienced here. This does not represent all of Kentucky. Coach Bill McCartney called me and said, hey, the Lord's going to be with you. I said, Coach, you need to pray harder about this racism ending before your lifetime because it's still alive and well. I've seen it face to face. Folks, I can't live a life pointing the finger, wanting some get back, always paying attention to who's being a racist. There are too many people that are not, that we can embrace and change the landscape, one loving relationship at a time. And this is the season for that to take place. Folks, I'm here to tell you the way God brought confusion in that courtroom after the trial was done. And I mean, man, the hate was so evident. The racist, unfair treatment that I received was so obvious. By the time the jury had to deliberate, in just 10 minutes, I was found not guilty. The very first black person in that county to win a case against the police department, the very first. And I'm telling you, it was because of the relationships that I had. Loving, kind, reciprocating of love relationships that I had with my brothers and sisters that were of the lighter hue. God rescued me. And my relationships with people rescued me also. Listen, I didn't do a thing wrong to be treated the way that I was treated, but it happened. But my intentional relationship with Jesus Christ and with the body of Christ beyond my black brothers and sisters that are saved, my intentional relationship with people that were racially different from me had a greater impact because they pulled together and got the defense fund for me. They got together and came down and they were in the courtroom with me. So when I see what's going on right now, when I see the hate that's in our world, when I see the political circus that's just not fair, that's a symbol of injustice instead of a symbol of justice, I realize I haven't spreaded the love enough, and I need to spread some more love. And so do you. You spread it on your job. Who are you dealing with? A racially insensitive boss? You spread it and make them uncomfortable treating you in a way that's not fair and right. You spread it with your neighbor that's not, all coming over to your house, loving the fact that you moved into their neighborhood. You make the first move. You spread it. You spread the love. And I promise you, if you give it out, you'll get it back. And you'll get it back in ways you never thought possible. Jesus Christ never told us to love our churches. Jesus Christ never told us to love our religion. He never told us to love our Bibles. Jesus Christ, he never told us to love all of those spiritual values you have, your speaking in tongues, your great biblical knowledge and wisdom. He told you to love your neighbor just the way you love yourself. That's what we've got to do more of, spreading the love. That is a blueprint Jesus left for all of us. And Jesus, being the Lord of all, never told us to worship him. He just told us to follow him. It's Pastor Abraham Lincoln Washington of Legacy Ministries. And at Legacy Ministries, we're running with the vision. I want to honor the life of Bill McCartney that the Lord has now called back into his presence. Thank you, Coach. You were an amazing example of what it means to love people racially different from yourself, and you did it when you didn't have to do it. And you made it your agenda when you didn't have to do it. Now that's how you bring forth the victory. You have a fantastic Friday.